football season ends and Ohio State hoists the national title trophy, and you're watching the conference championship games being played between the Eagles and the Commanders, and you got the Chiefs and the Bills. And while all that is happening, if you're subscribed to the On3 Twitter account, which I would encourage you to do when it comes to notifications, you get an alert and says Jim Knowles set to be the next defensive coordinator for the Penn State Nittany Lions. And as you see this, your head's kind of spinning a little bit because you thought maybe there was some smoke with Oklahoma, but you also, in your heart of hearts, is like, hey, man, it's Ohio State. It's not really going to leave Ohio State after they just won the national championship, is he? Well, he has, in fact, done that. And we'll unpack that right now. So the question is, why would he leave, right? Why would you leave Ohio State after winning the national championship? There's a great article on LettermanRow.com, Ohio State's On3 site, that will unpack this in a little bit more depth. But to put it simply, there was strain, it sounds like, between Jim Knowles and the Ohio State staff. Now, what does that strain entail? I'm not in the building. I can't speak with absolute authority. But if there's strain, it's usually not a super great setup for longevity between those two parties. If you're Ohio State, this isn't an Ohio State segment, but if you're Ohio State, in some ways you say, hey, we won a national title. It's unfortunate it didn't work out. Let's dap it up and we'll go our separate ways. Now, unfortunately, you probably don't dap it up all that strongly because he's going to go coach for a team that you're going to play here going forward and stands in the way of you winning a Big Ten title next year. But for Penn State, this is where I really want us to focus, because how often have we had this discussion around Penn State of saying, man, if they could just get over the hump this year. They got so much talent. They got so much this. They got so much that. This is the year. This is the year for Penn State. Then every year it is, in fact, not the year for James Franklin and Penn State. And what excites me about this move is you can talk about wanting to go win the Big Ten. You can talk about wanting to be a team that hoists a national title trophy. To me, this is Penn State's actions. Yet again, for the second time this offseason, since they lost to Notre Dame, saying we are not settling for anything less than winning a national championship. And we're not settling for anything less than a national title kind of effort on our side. Because if you remember now, not just the Jim Knowles acquisition, I want us to go back to what happened post-Orange Bowl. You lose that game, and we're all like, man, they had a shot. They had Allen, they had Singleton, Abdul Carter's gone to the league, obviously. We'll see what happens to Drew Aller, but this was the roster they had a shot. And then slowly but surely, you start seeing those I'm back declarations. Drew Aller said he was coming back, solidifies he's coming back, both the running backs, key pieces on defense. I don't believe they're coming back for a free $99 price point. Jim Knowles, Cornell alum, is now the highest paid coordinator in college football. So at the very least now, you're saying for Penn State, the care factor is there. We want to win a national championship, better have some national title resources to back it up. Better have some bat to swing when it comes to trying to go win the national title. And that's the thing here. When you look at previous national title teams, they have a very specific blueprint, I would say, especially these last two national champs. Michigan and Ohio State, what do they have in common? One, great coordinators. I would say as good a coordinator combo in college football was Jim Knowles and Chip Kelly this past season. Ohio State went out and got a Chip Kelly to go with this national title squad this year. And they also have a veteran roster. Now, Ohio State, their returning production numbers are a little bit skewed because of the key pieces they brought in via the portal and because of they lost their quarterback and Marvin Harrison Jr., but the fact remains the same. Over 60% production for Ohio State was back from a season ago. Michigan, the year they won it, they were top 5 in returning production. I don't know where Penn State's going to fall, but I have to believe they'll be somewhere in that top 25, top 15 range. To me, that's good enough. That's good enough when it comes to trying to win a national championship. And I look across the Big Ten, and it's the best conference in college football right now. I don't think that's a stretch. But Penn State, as much as people have concern about what they haven't done under James Franklin, to me, they have the most certainty when it comes to returning quarterback, veteran roster, and coordinators. I think they have the most certainty, I think, in the Big Ten. If you're talking about what's proven, like Oregon, I think they're going to be awesome. I just told you I think they're a national title contending team. There's no guarantee Dante Moore lights the world on fire. No guarantee that he lives up to what he was as a recruit. Michigan, they very likely could have a true freshman starting at quarterback for them next season. I think he's going to be awesome. I think Sharon Moore is going to have that thing humming, but there's no guarantee that they're the stalwart of the Big Ten next season. Ohio State, they're reloading a lot of talent. I think they'll still be stocked, but again, they have a new quarterback. Now, thanks to Jim Knowles, they're going to have a new defensive coordinator. As we sit here right now, Chip Kelly is getting NFL interest. There's no guarantee what Ohio State is next year. Indiana, they made the playoff. New quarterback. USC, new quarterback. Like, there's a lot unknown around the Big Ten that we know about Penn State. Like, love him or hate him, I feel like I know the floor of what Drew Aller is. Love him or hate him, I think I know what Andy Koltanecki's offense can be at a base level. College football sickos, make sure you are subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel. On this show, The Hard Count, it's college football, nothing but college football all year round. Now, this show is brought to you by our friends over at PrizePicks. Daily fantasy, easy to use, easy to play, easy to withdraw what you win. Follow us here. Use code HARDCOUNT at prizepicks.com. We're going to do our very best to make us all some money. Now, even if we don't, when you play with code HARDCOUNT at prizepicks.com, make yourself $50 in promo funds to then go ball out the rest of this playoff. So again, code HARDCOUNT, $5 in lineups, gets you $50 in promo funds at prizepicks.com. We appreciate y'all subscribing. We appreciate y'all using that code with our friends PrizePicks. Put a pause on that right there. There's two major caveats here for Penn State to go play for what they expect to play for in 2025. And the first caveat is just go get some receivers, dude. It sounds simple. I'm making it way too simple, but everyone knows what the blind spot is for this team. Everyone saw the Orange Bowl and saw you have 0 receivers with a catch in a game you lost by 3 points. Don't pretend that the answer is already in-house. Don't pretend that, okay, we got some dudes that we feel good about. No. If you had some dudes you felt good about, that would have helped you in the Orange Bowl. They would have done something for you at this point, man. You lost Tyler Warren, and he was a stud, but he's not coming back next year. And Trey Wallace and Amari Evans, they're both gone. You brought in Kyron Hudson. I thought that was a more sneaky acquisition via the portal with him coming over from USC. But don't leave this season saying, man, if we only had some receivers, then we could have really competed for what we wanted to compete for. If you do, shame on you. That's malpractice. That's a different conversation after the season. The second major caveat is Jim Knowles and his defense. He's a bit of a mad scientist. Now, he majored in the School of Industrial Labor Relations at Cornell, not, in fact, a science major. However, kind of a mad scientist when it comes to how he draws up the defense. It's not the easiest to get the hang of, to put it simply. You hear players talk about his defense and it being something that breaks a lot of traditional rules in the defense, breaks a lot of tendencies, and this isn't for me to say, but I do think there's something to be accounted for of it can't be a thing where it takes 2 to 3 years for them to get the defense all the way installed and installed correctly. Like Ohio State's defense, when Jim Knowles took over, they were better, but they also had a lot of lapses where big plays ended up keeping Ohio State from accomplishing their goals. So improvement is great, but don't improve at the cost of a couple of big plays because we're having a difficult time getting this defense down. Like, let's get comfortable in the defense. If we have to distill it down a little bit to let our players make plays, then great, but that can't be another governor for you on this 2025 season because everyone's going to have a take on James Franklin. That's probably the number one comment under this video. Well, they got a quarterback, sure, we'll see. Yeah, they got a coordinator now, awesome. Don't have a head coach. And it hurts a little bit to read that if you're a Penn State fan because you're like, we have a head coach. He's really good, wins a lot of his games, but just not the ones that we need him to win against top 10 teams. So in some ways, like I mentioned at the top of this segment, like he's earned those credentials. But here's the thing I would say when we talk about James Franklin. Let's not pretend that Penn State is just worlds apart when it comes to those top 10 games, especially this season. All 3 of those losses against the top 10 teams were by 1 score. Against Ohio State, against Oregon, and Notre Dame, all by 1 score. So it's not ideal. There's no way to give you a moral victory for losing a game by 1 score against a top 10 team. But let's not pretend that those games couldn't have broken a different way should Penn State have made a play or two there, a play or two here, what have you. Now the reality is you didn't. So what do you do from here? But Penn State, again, with them being as close as they have been this season, it shows there is just the need to break through. There's a need for that flag plant moment, no pun intended on the Ohio State-Michigan deal. There's a need for that sort of moment for Penn State to just look their, I guess, demons in the eye and just to say, not anymore. Not anymore. And the thing that gives me confidence is, again, we're seeing Penn State make real moves to be able to overcome those kind of situations in the future, to be able to overcome what they've lacked in the past. Because I'll say this too, I think Penn State overall, at least against Oregon and Ohio State, they lack talent. And they did not have the talent that those 2 teams had. in my humble opinion. Now, with the narrative around James Franklin, I would just say this. Let's be careful to let narratives be considered absolute truth. Because I said this in our breakout video when Jim Knowles got hired. We're coming off a season now where we had two coaches that played for a national title that had a narrative around both of them of they can't win the big one. Marcus Freeman's been a coach for like 5 minutes at the head coaching level at Notre Dame. Everyone's like, lost to Marsh, lost to NIU. Yeah, he did, but he also got him to a national title. Ryan Day, he can't beat Michigan. I don't know, man. He's just won a national championship in his 6th season, so the narratives have a funny way of not all the time being 100% accurate when it comes to their staying power. So a roundabout way to tell you, I love the Jim Knowles acquisition. I love the way that Penn State's roster is built. I love the formula, and I think that they're going to be a real force here in 2025, pushing all the chips to the table, saying all in, here we go, let's get it done. And again, for narrative's sake, I'm pulling for James Franklin in that way.